Welcome back to the History of the Ancient Near East. I'm Justin Singleton. Now, in this lecture, we're going to discuss the rather controversial topic of the Nephilim of Genesis 6. Now, just as I've said the last few lectures, please forgive any interruptions. I've actually had to restart this recording several times because apparently I keep saying something very close to the word Siri because my phone keeps trying to search things for me. So, forgive me, hang in there with me. Okay, here in this lecture, we're going to discuss the history of the interpretation of Genesis 6, including the alien-human hybrid theory, the demon-human hybrid theory, and the mixed-race humans theories. Moving on, we'll discuss what I believe to be the failure of the supernatural interpretations, pointing out both Jewish and early Christian demonology, before discussing what I believe to be the superiority of the natural interpretations, discussing mixed races, and then finally the hero interpretation, where we're going to discuss Gilgamesh as a son of a deity, a rapist, and how he may relate to Genesis 6. Now, one of the yet unsolved mysteries within Scripture stems from Genesis 6:4. Where the sons of God, or the sons of the gods, B'nai Ha-Elohim, took the daughters of men to be their wives, resulting in the birth of mighty heroes. As Genesis 6:4 begins with a reference to the Nephilim, it's believed that these Nephilim are the children of these unions between the sons of God and the daughters of men, though the text doesn't clearly say as much. Throughout the years, the mystery of the Nephilim has stirred the imagination. Modern interpretations are as many as there are websites to explain those interpretations, with the main culprits ranging from giants to alien hybrids to simple mixed-race humans. The conspiracy theorist-like search for what these Nephilim were has been undertaken by both Christians and non-Christians alike. And even some scholars have joined in the philosophical exploration. Perhaps the most peculiar of the modern theories stems from a belief in extraterrestrials, and in particular, the belief that extraterrestrials have long visited our planet. Although an attempt to conglomerate all ancient alien theories into one simple statement is impossible, several ufologists have made the connection between the sons of God in Genesis 6 and extraterrestrials, linking the phrase to aliens in general, or to gray aliens specifically. A common theme within this theory appears to be the dispensing of alien DNA into humanity in order to guide the human race, some arguing that the Adam himself was a creation of these extraterrestrials, and that Genesis 6 shows further siring of the hybrid species. Now, much of the alien-human hybrid theory appears to have been based on the angel-human hybrid theory, or the demon-human hybrid theory, the belief that the sons of God were in fact angelic beings, in particular, fallen angels. This theory finds itself in both biblically conservative circles, where angels and demons are already believed to be true, and in more liberal circles where the story is understood as a myth. The theory is also believed outside of Christianity altogether. Now, one apparent theme held by some Christian theorists, a theme similar to the alien-human hybrid theory, involves the contamination of the human bloodline. In this case, the unsuccessful attempt to contaminate the lineage of Adam in order to negate the promise of a coming Messiah. Now, the Sons of God are even featured in the 2014 major Hollywood remake of the flood story, simply titled Noah, starring Russell Crowe and Sir Anthony Hopkins, where the fallen angels are seen as giant rock monsters, a play on the ancient Jewish myth found in 1st Enoch, which involved fallen angelic beings called Watchers. This theory is a very old theory and very popular supposition. Perhaps the second most popular view on this matter is the belief that the sons of God and daughters of men are not supernatural beings at all, but rather the mixing of the lineage of Cain with the lineage of Seth, where Cain's descendants are understood to be ungodly and Seth's are understood to be godly, but perhaps apostate based on the passage. This view, along with the belief that the sons of God were despotic rulers, originate in the 2nd century AD and completely avoid the concept of supernatural beings having sex with humans. Now, the concept behind both supernatural theories necessarily exists outside of the realm of the empirical, historical, or even exegetical sciences. Any theories involving extraterrestrial or alien seed arguments are impossible to ascertain scientifically, as no sentient alien species have yet been discovered. Additionally, there is no historical evidence to suggest that extraterrestrial species have visited our planet. While some have attempted to suggest alien interpretations both historically and biblically, none are accepted within academia, and all evidences have been found to be lacking. Because of this, the alien-human hybrid theory in this discussion will be dismissed in whole. What remains to be discussed supernaturally is the alien-human hybrid theory, a theory finding associations with demonology in both early Jewish and early Christian literature. Now, within Jewish mythology, specifically within the Book of the Watchers, which is the first part of 1st Enoch, the Watchers, angels, saw the beauty of human women. They desired them, and then they chose wives from among them so that they could bear children to the Watchers. These fallen angels defiled themselves through the women, teaching the women sorcery and charms, and then siring giants. These giants, in turn, begat the Nephilim, according to 1 Enoch 7, 1-2. Although named after the antediluvian patriarch Enoch, 1 Enoch is very clearly a composite piece, likely including multiple periods and writers. But a plausible completion date for the Book of the Watchers as a whole, based on paleographical evidences, is sometime from the late 3rd century to the early 2nd century BC, not too long before the time of Christ. This places the composition quite late, and this allows for the patriarch Enoch to have been the original author. And the content of the book occurs after the time of the patriarch Enoch. Partially because of these, 1st Enoch is considered to be pseudepigraphal, or having a false title. Although 1st Enoch is a fascinating work that can impress 2nd century BC Hebrew apocalyptic writing upon the scholar, the writing itself is non-canonical and cannot be used for theological discovery. Now, early Christian authors such as Athenagoras, Commodianus, and Origen have also commented upon the belief that angels mated with humans. These, appearingly based upon a reading of 1st Enoch, discuss the impure love that some angels had for human virgins, according to Athenagoras, which banned the angels from returning to heaven, according to Commodianus, resulting in wickedness and impiety towards God, according to Origen. Of course, nothing within Scripture reveals any of this. And in fact, it's not certain that the Nephilim are the children of the sons of God and daughters of men, although I do agree that they are. Additionally, the children of these unions are not said to be evil or wicked. In fact, Genesis 6:4 only notes positive aspects of the children, calling them mighty heroes and famous men. Thus, although the angel-human hybrid theory is an acceptable theory, it's a theory that appears to be based on ante-Nicene writings, which were in turn based on Jewish mythology. The theory appears not to be based on the Scriptures. Now, scripturally, believers are not told whether angelic beings can sire children. Matthew 22:30 suggests that angels do not marry, and Luke 20:34-36 further suggests the same, adding that angels cannot die. Forgive me, somehow I mixed up the button pushing and I just got rid of that passage, but you can look it up if you want. Luke 20:34-36. Now, Hebrews 1:14 mentions that angels are spirits, and Luke 24:39 notes that spirits do not have flesh and blood. Of course, there are several examples of angelic beings appearing as flesh and blood, including the Hebrews 1:14 passage, which describes some angels as ministering to humans in such ways that humans may not even be aware of the angelic nature of the beings. And thus, it can be assumed that in those instances, the angels appeared to be physiologically human, likely even to the point of containing sexual organs. Now, with that said, angels in human form are said to have suddenly appeared before humans, and also to have suddenly disappeared, no doubt owing to their spiritual existence. But every example within Scripture is linked to Yahweh willing the appearances to happen. Angels are nowhere said to have created anything, including their own physical bodies. And examples of demons within Scripture appear either as spiritual beings or as possessing individuals, but never with a physical body of their own. To suggest that angelic beings, whether good or evil, can reproduce with humans is extra-biblical, and it can actually be argued that the concept is unbiblical, as it appears to violate Genesis 1, which describes reproducible living creatures reproducing only after their own kinds. Thus, theories involving a supernatural reproduction in Genesis 6 seem, at least to me, to be unfounded and inferior to the naturalistic interpretations. These naturalistic interpretations ranging from the mixture of godly and ungodly races, being unequally yoked, to the rape of citizens at the hands of kings. This is the law of the first night type concept. Now, the theory that the sons of God and daughters of men were unequally yoked marriages is seemingly a favorite among many evangelical scholars. The unequal marriages, according to theorists, may represent either apostate Sethite descendants marrying the ungodly Cainite descendants, or possibly simply godly men in general who took pagan women as wives, resulting in children who followed their mother's gods rather than following Yahweh. Within these theories, then, the sons of God phrase is understood similar to Exodus 4:22-23, where Israel is said to be God's son, as well as several other Old Testament passages, including 2 Samuel 7:14, 1 Chronicles 17:13, and 1 Chronicles 22:10. Within the New Testament, peacemakers are described as sons of God in Matthew 5:9. And in Luke 20:34-36, Jesus describes the dichotomy between the sons of this age and the sons of God. Now, more to the point of this theory, John 1:12-13 explains that those who receive Christ, believers, become children of God, a concept mirrored in the mixed marriage theory showing that believers, the godly, are sons of God. Of course, this view says nothing of the resulting mighty and famous men who came as a result of these unions. These men are described in Genesis 6:4 as Hagiborim, warriors or heroes, like the Hagiborim of King David found in 2 Samuel 23:8-38, and often translated as mighty men. The singular of this word, Gibor, is used to describe Nimrod in Genesis 10:8, who was said to be not only a mighty man, but the first mighty man on the earth. But possibly, if the phrase before the Lord in Genesis 10:9 is used as a superlative, the mightiest of all men, whether this means post-flood or if it includes the so-called Nephilim in Genesis 6. Interestingly, the word hunter used here, Tzadik, is also used of hunting men, according to 1 Samuel 24:12. It looks like I may have mixed up the button pushing again. Forgive me. Anyway, and it's believed by some that Nimrod's skill in hunting animals ultimately led to his skill in battle. Now, whatever the Nephilim were, assuming that they were the children of these unions, there does not appear to be anything supernatural about their prowess. Instead, they appear to have been simply mighty warriors whose fame had spread across the land, similar to David's men, or perhaps Achilles, as found in Homer's Iliad. There also does not appear to be a connection with their parentage and their mighty acts, at least not within the mixed race theory. The fact that their fathers were either godly or apostate believers, and that their mothers were pagan or unbelievers, would not necessarily result in their status as famous men, let alone warriors. Final interpretation, and one that I would like to put forward, is that the so-called Nephilim were children of pagan rulers or kings, and whose paternal parentage allowed them access to leadership roles in military campaigns, or possibly royal hunting parties. This theory stems from a reading not of sons of God, but rather sons of the gods, B'nai ha-Elohim, understanding the plural, Elohim, as a reference to pagan deities or rulers, rather than a plural of majesty, as is often seen when the word is used of Yahweh. The word in reference to pagan deities has provenance within Scripture, as seen in Exodus 20, verse 3, and a great number of other passages. For instance, Judges 10:13, Yahweh notes that even though he had saved the Israelites from Egypt, the Amorites, and several other people groups, the Israelites abandoned Yahweh and served other Elohim, gods. Concerning the word in reference to non-divine beings, Psalm 8:5, quoted in Hebrews 2:7, uses the term in reference to angels, noting that mankind was created a little lower than the Elohim. And in Psalm 138:1, David praises God before the Elohim. Again, I forgot to switch that. That's supposed to be Psalm 138:1. Please forgive me. Additionally, several passages in Exodus use the word in reference to judges, and it's suggested that this use reflects either divine representatives or divine power. Now, although no antediluvian documents have survived, nor would they be expected to have survived, post-flood examples of ancient rulers being referred to as children of gods are many, including the well-known Sargon, Shulgi, and Gilgamesh. Of note, it's not being argued here that these rulers were Nephilim, but that ancient rulers were routinely referred to as children of the gods. Perhaps Gilgamesh, son of the goddess, can be understood as the greatest example, as much has been written about him, including the infamous Gilgamesh epic, an ancient myth that went through a rather long Sumerian development before its final form. Gilgamesh was the actual historical third king of the first dynasty of Uruk, dating to the early dynastic period in Mesopotamia, sometime around 2700 BC. Gilgamesh was an alcoholic, a womanizer, a battler of monsters, and the equivalent of a Mesopotamian King Arthur, whose quest for the Holy Grail of immortality ended in failure. By the end of his myth, he's resigned only to be remembered via his story. The first evidence of the deification of the man dates to the mid-3rd millennium BC. Of note, Gilgamesh, along with Ashurbanipal, was claimed to have been able to read pre-flood inscriptions, a boast of scholarly literacy, but a possible acknowledgement of pre-flood culture that had been passed down orally through the generations. In relation to Genesis 6, within the first tablet of the Epic of Gilgamesh, it stated, "Gilgamesh does not leave a girl to her mother, the daughter of the warrior, the bride of the young man." The concept of oppression toward his people is understood by most scholars, and this oppression ranges from forced labor to sexual assault and rape. And in fact, this oppression, according to the epic, is the reason that the people of Uruk called out to the gods to save them, resulting in the creation of Enkidu, an uncivilized brute sent to kill the king, but who eventually befriended Gilgamesh instead. This seemingly complete lack of a moral compass stems from Gilgamesh's demigod status, being a son of the gods who, in Sumerian mythology, were not particularly moral deities to begin with. Thus, Gilgamesh raped any woman he chose, and nothing could be done about it. These historical and literary examples lend toward a better understanding of what may have been at play in Genesis 6. That is, earthly rulers who oppressed their people, took their women, and most likely sired countless offspring. While nothing is noted about the children of Gilgamesh sired through these rapes, no doubt their status as children of the king gave them positions of power and perhaps military leadership roles, but this is just conjecture. Now, it should be noted that the word Nephilim is not well understood. Within the biblical text, the word appears only twice, Genesis 6:4 and Numbers 13:32-33. And the context of these passages does not make a translation really viable. Now, this is the reason that some Bible translations chose simply to transliterate the term, like the NIV, NASB, or the NLT. Other translations, such as the King James Version, translate the word as giant, based on the Septuagint use of the word, the Greek word, gigantes. Although there's no biblical connection between Gilgamesh and any characters within the Genesis narrative, there is an astrological connection. Interestingly, the word Nephilim in Genesis 6:4 is the same word used in ancient Babylonian and is understood as a heavenly shepherd and associated with the constellation Orion, which is termed the Shepherd of Anu. The word is also used in Aramaic in reference to the same constellation. In Mesopotamian literature, Orion is associated with Gilgamesh, who is said to have superhuman strength and was able to kill the Bull of Heaven, which is associated with the constellation Taurus, which was sent to fight Gilgamesh by the goddess Inanna, most likely after Gilgamesh rejected the goddess's sexual advances. Now, it's unclear whether or not Moses intended to make a connection with the myth of Gilgamesh, but the connection may make an interpretation of the word more plausible, namely the concept of kings or rulers initiating a notion similar to jus primae noctis, or the right of the first night, which was a type of legal rape supposedly used by royalty throughout history. The result of these unions in Genesis 6:4 was a siring of children who would become mighty men, heroes in a similar vein to Nimrod, Achilles, or perhaps Chris Kyle, warriors of renown. Although not directly stated within the passage, these heroes may have obtained negative reputations through immoral practices similar to Gilgamesh, or they may have had positive reputations, such as David's mighty men. Nephilim existed post-flood as well, but since none but Noah's bloodline survived the deluge, the term was likely used not of a race of beings, but the status of individuals, such as Goliath, a rather tall and strong man who utilized the mixed armor and weapons most likely of those whom he had bested, which was a standard practice at that time. These were most likely heroes in the Greek sense. Now, I hope I didn't step on any toes with this lecture. As always, feel free to reach out to me if you need anything.